Have you ever felt like a huge weight just lifted
Yeah.
when you actually forgive someone?
Oh, yeah.
It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of at the heart of what we're diving into today, Forgiveness Sunday.
Okay.
It's this tradition in Orthodox Christianity that happens like right before Lent.
Right before Great Lent. It's a fascinating time of year because it's about so much more than just, like giving something up.
Hmm.
It's about really confronting our own shortcomings and seeking reconciliation,
Mm.
both with others and with ourselves.
So it's not just about prepping for Lent.
No,
It's about something deeper.
absolutely. Think of it this way. Imagine you're carrying around this heavy backpack just filled with all this resentment and anger.
Okay.
Forgiveness Sunday is like you're invited to unpack that backpack,
Right.
take a look at what's in there,
Right.
decide what you can let go of.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get why this isn't just another Sunday on the calendar.
Yeah.
But how does this connect back to that story of Adam and Eve being kicked out of the Garden of Eden?
Oh, that's a good question.
I always found that story kind of, well, a little heavy itself.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because the story of Adam and Eve isn't just a cautionary tale. I think it really reflects like a universal human experience. That feeling of messing up, falling from grace, as some might say.
Right?
Forgiveness Sunday encourages us to kind of confront those moments where we stray from our own garden of peace
Okay.
and seek a path back.
So we're not just remembering Adam and Eve's mistake, but also reflecting on our own.
Yeah.
Our own falls from grace.
Precisely. And just as Adam and Eve face the consequences of their actions,
Yeah.
we too experience the repercussions of our choices.
Right.
Forgiveness Sunday allows us to acknowledge those choices and work towards harmony, both within ourselves and with others.
Okay, so this brings us up to fasting, which is a huge part of the whole lead up to Easter. Forgiveness Sunday is that last day for dairy
Last day for dairy.
before the fasting starts.
Right.
Is there a danger in oversimplifying things?
Hmm.
When we compare fasting to forgiveness, it feels like they're very different.
That's a good point because while fasting is about abstaining from certain foods
Right.
and forgiveness is about letting go of resentment,
Right.
they both involve a conscious decision to kind of sacrifice something
Okay.
for a greater purpose.
So it's like training our willpower on both these different fronts.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that, the source material really emphasizes that fasting isn't just about, dietary restriction,
Yeah.
but about aligning our will with a higher purpose.
Okay.
There's a quote from the Gospel of Matthew that speaks directly to this. If you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
Wow. So forgiveness is clearly not optional here.
No.
There are consequences to holding on to that anger and resentment.
Real consequences.
Yeah, it really sounds like Forgiveness Sunday is almost like this yearly reminder
Yeah.
to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
But how does this all work out, like, practically speaking? Is there like a ritual or something?
There is.
Okay.
And it's called the Rite of Forgiveness.
Oh,
It
neat.
takes place during Vespers,
Uh-huh.
the evening service on Forgiveness Sunday. What do you imagine when you think of this ritual?
Honestly, I picture something really formal, maybe even a little intimidating.
It's actually much simpler
Okay.
and more profound than you might think. People approach each other,
Okay.
they bow,
Uh-huh.
they ask for forgiveness with a humble phrase.
Okay.
Forgive me, a sinner.
And the response.
God forgives and I forgive.
There's so much power in those words.
Yeah.
Especially when you picture, like, people saying them genuinely to each other.
Yeah.
It's not just about saying the words,
Right.
but it's about really seeking and offering that forgiveness.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a physical and emotional manifestation of an internal transformation.
Wow.
It's about recognizing our shared human experience.
Hmm.
The fact that we all make mistakes,
Hmm.
we all hurt others,
Right.
and we need forgiveness ourselves.
It sounds like a powerful way to close one chapter
Yeah.
and start fresh.
Yeah.
But how does this act of forgiveness, this reset button,
Yeah.
how does it translate to the weeks leading up to Easter?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the heart of what makes Forgiveness Sunday so meaningful.
Okay.
Let's explore that as we continue our deep dive. #TTS The Deep Dive episode 2025-0301, part 2 of 3.
So we were just talking about that rite of forgiveness.
Yes.
And how powerful you mentioned there's like a reset button.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little on that? What makes it so transformative?
Well, it's interesting because the rite of forgiveness encourages us to address not only like major transgressions,
Right.
but also the subtle ways we create distance between ourselves and others. So think about those moments of indifference.
Okay.
You know, the times we choose politeness over genuine connection.
Okay.
These seemingly minor things can also hinder spiritual growth.
So it's about going deeper than like surface level interactions.
Yeah.
And recognizing how even the small actions can have like a ripple effect.
Exactly. The act of bowing and asking for forgiveness, even from people we might not even consider close, requires a tremendous amount of humility. It forces us to confront our own imperfections and acknowledge where we've fallen short. You know, I remember one Forgiveness Sunday, I approached someone I had been avoiding because of a minor disagreement.
Oh, wow.
The act of asking for their forgiveness, even for something seemingly small, lifted such a huge weight off my shoulders. It allowed us to reconnect in a way that I hadn't expected.
That's a powerful example of how even like a small act of forgiveness can have that ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's interesting how Forgiveness Sunday leads right into Great Lent, a time traditionally associated with fasting and self-denial. But like you said earlier, fasting is about so much more than just abstaining from food.
Right, and one of the sources we have actually cautions against thinking that abstaining from food is all there is to it. It emphasizes that true fasting should go beyond just mere dietary restrictions. It's about purifying our passions, our inner selves.
So the outward act of fasting should reflect like an inner transformation.
Exactly.
Like cleansing the heart and soul.
Precisely. Fasting becomes a tool that can help us turn away from those worldly desires and really refocus on our spiritual growth. It's about aligning our actions with our intentions and striving to become more Christ-like.
But isn't there a risk of getting too caught up in like the acts of fasting itself?
Oh, yeah.
Almost becoming like self-righteous about our sacrifices?
Sure.
How does forgiveness fit into all this?
You've raised a really crucial point. You see, forgiveness is an integral part of this inner purification. When we let go of anger and resentment, we actually free ourselves from the negativity that weighs us down and clouds our judgment. It allows us to approach our Lenten journey with a clearer perspective and a much more open heart.
So it's like forgiveness clears the path for growth, creating space for grace and compassion to come into our lives.
Absolutely. And Forgiveness Sunday really beautifully sets the stage for this Lenten journey. It reminds us that true spiritual renewal requires both discipline of fasting and the liberation of forgiveness.
It's also fascinating, but I got to admit, when I think of Lent, I often picture it as this rather somber time.
Yeah.
But you said that Lent's actually a pilgrimage towards joy.
Yeah.
How can we reconcile these two seemingly opposite ideas?
Well, that's a common misconception. Lent isn't about like wallowing in guilt or deprivation. It's about intentionally creating space for reflection, for repentance, and ultimately a much deeper connection with God. The joy we anticipate is the joy of Easter, the celebration of Christ's resurrection.
So even though it involves sacrifice and introspection, it's ultimately a journey towards hope and renewal.
Exactly. And Forgiveness Sunday offers a glimpse of that hope. There's this beautiful tradition during the Rite of Forgiveness where the choir starts to sing Paschal hymns. Hymns typically associated with Easter.
That's beautiful imagery. It's like a spark of Easter joy.
Yeah.
Is igniting within like the solemnity of Forgiveness Sunday.
Exactly.
But if Lent's about preparing for Easter, why focus so much on forgiveness at the very beginning?
Right.
Why not emphasize it closer to Easter Sunday itself?
That's a great question. Positioning Forgiveness Sunday at the start of Lent is incredibly intentional. It's about acknowledging that before we can fully embrace that joy of Easter, before we can experience real spiritual renewal, we need to clear the ground, so to speak. We need to address the things that are weighing us down, the grudges. We're holding the resentment that's taking root in our hearts.
So we're clearing a path for the journey ahead, creating like a foundation of forgiveness that we can build our Lenten practice on.
You got it. And that foundation, that sense of lightness that comes with forgiveness, actually allows us to experience Lent not as a burden, but as an opportunity for real growth and transformation. It allows us to approach the challenges of fasting and self-reflection with a renewed sense of hope and purpose.
This is giving me like a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
On both Forgiveness Sunday and Lent, it's not just about giving stuff up or adhering to rituals.
Right.
It's about aligning our inner selves with a deeper purpose. But all of this has been within the context of Orthodox Christianity.
Right.
How can someone who's not a part of that tradition apply these concepts to their own life?
That's a wonderful question. And it brings us to the heart of why Forgiveness Sunday resonates with so many people.
Okay.
Regardless of their background, it all comes down to the universal power of forgiveness. Let's explore that further as we continue. #TTS, The Deep Dive, episode 2025-0301, part 3 of 3.
We've been talking about Forgiveness Sunday and how important it is in Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah,
But you said that the power of forgiveness is like a universal thing.
it is.
So what does that mean for someone who's not part of that tradition?
Well, forgiveness at its core, it's really a deeply human experience. It kind of transcends any specific religion or belief system.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we are all flawed. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that holding on to that anger and resentment ultimately hurts us more than anyone else.
You're saying even if someone isn't observing Lent or participating in that rite of forgiveness,
Right.
they can still tap into that transformative power of forgiveness in their own lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about a time when someone wronged you, maybe betrayed your trust or said something hurtful. What happens when you hold on to that anger?
Well, speaking from experience, it can kind of consume you.
Yeah.
It really impacts your mood, your relationships, even your ability to enjoy the good things in life. It's like carrying a heavy weight around.
Exactly. And while it's totally natural to feel hurt and angry when someone wrongs us,
Right.
clinging to those emotions keeps us trapped in a cycle of pain and resentment.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is about breaking free from that cycle.
But that's easier said than done right.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes forgiveness feels impossible, especially when the person who hurt you hasn't even admitted they did anything wrong or apologized.
Right.
How do you begin to forgive someone when that happens?
That's where the real challenge lies. And it's important to remember that forgiveness isn't about condoning the other person's actions
Right?
or pretending that what they did was okay.
Right.
It's about choosing to release the grip
Okay.
that those negative emotions have on you. It's about reclaiming your peace of mind.
So it's an act of self-care in a way.
It is. It's about recognizing that holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison
Right.
and expecting the other person to get sick.
Right.
Forgiveness is about taking that poison and throwing it away.
Wow.
It's about choosing to heal yourself.
But how do you actually do that? Like, how do you go from feeling deeply hurt and angry to actually forgiving someone when it feels so difficult?
It's a process, and it's definitely not always easy.
Right.
One of the first steps is to acknowledge and validate your own feelings.
Okay.
Don't try to suppress that anger or sadness. Allow yourself to feel those emotions fully. It's like tending to a wound.
Okay.
You need to clean it and dress it before it can even begin to heal.
So it's acknowledging it's okay to be hurt and angry.
Yeah.
We don't have to pretend
Yeah.
like it doesn't affect us.
Right. And once you've acknowledged your feelings, you can start to explore the roots of that anger and resentment.
Okay.
What beliefs are fueling those negative emotions? Are you holding on to past hurts that are keeping you from moving forward? Maybe you were taught that forgiveness is a sign of weakness or that you need to wait for an apology before you can even offer forgiveness.
Right.
Examining those beliefs can be such a powerful step in the healing process.
So self-reflection is key here.
It is taking the time to really understand your own emotional landscape.
Right.
And as we start to understand ourselves better, we can begin to cultivate compassion,
Okay.
both for ourselves and for the person who's hurt us.
Right.
This doesn't mean excusing their behavior,
Right.
but it does mean trying to see them as a flawed human being.
Okay.
Just like us. Everyone has their own struggles, their own wounds that they're carrying. Seeing the person who hurt you through a lens of compassion can make forgiveness feel less impossible.
It's about shifting our perspective.
It is. Seeing the situation not just through our own hurt, but also recognizing the humanity of the other person. Yeah, and from that place of understanding, forgiveness becomes a possibility.
Okay.
You can choose to let go of the need to be right, the need to punish the other person, and instead focus on your own healing and well-being.
So forgiveness is an act of both self-care and generosity.
Yes. We're choosing to release ourselves from the burden of negativity while also offering the other person a chance to move forward.
That's a good way to put it. And the amazing thing is that as we practice forgiveness, we not only heal ourselves, but we also create these ripples of positive change
Yeah,
in the world around us.
exactly.
When we choose to forgive, we break that cycle of hurt and resentment
Yeah.
and open up the possibility for reconciliation and understanding. This has been a really eye-opening deep dive
It has.
into Forgiveness Sunday and the transformative power of forgiveness. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective,
Me too.
not only on this tradition, but also how to approach forgiveness in my own life.
Yeah.
And to our listener, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. Whether or not you observe Forgiveness Sunday or any religious tradition,
Great.
think about how incorporating the principles we've discussed today, self-reflection, seeking forgiveness, and extending forgiveness to others, could impact your life and your relationships.
That's a good point.
It might just lead to a sense of peace and lightness that you didn't know was possible.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.